Morning all. Quite a lot in the news this week. The Highways Agency have apologised, if you can believe that. It's the first time I've ever heard of the Highways Agency apologising for anything. But they've apologised for a mistake where they left a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in force on the M5. It was back in 2017, but they've only just apologised and admitted their mistake. There was unfortunately a fatal accident near Bristol, and they closed the road for however long it was, and then they introduced the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit for a short time, I guess, while they did whatever it was they were doing to clear up the accident. And but they then left the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in force for another 14 hours after the crash. And so obviously drivers were coming along, motorway was completely clear, open. I believe it was at night. Well, I guess part of the time would have been during the evening or night, due to the fact that it was in force for so long. And they were just convinced that this must be a mistake. It can't be a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. And there was one lorry driver in particular who I believe it's adversely affected his career. I can't remember the exact details, but he said something along the lines of, "I've been driving lorries for 20 years all around Europe. I knew that it must be a mistake and it couldn't possibly be a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on the motorway. I slowed down, but not to 20 miles an hour," and he received a speeding ticket, which I believe he paid, as did hundreds of other drivers. I think the number was 490 something drivers were caught out. Yeah, so they've admitted their mistake, but no one gets their money back, and no one gets the points taken off of their license either. It's pretty disgraceful, to be honest, and what a crazy system where one entity, i.e. the Highways Agency, can say, yeah, sorry, we were in the wrong, but actually you're not getting any money back because it's not us that's taken it from you, it's the police. Completely crazy system. Other news, up in Lincolnshire, there's a speed camera that's just been replaced, and it was a Trevelo. I'm not sure the model of camera that it's been replaced for, but apparently it's a different model. And all the locals were receiving speeding tickets for kind of 35, it was a 30 limit, around 35, 36 miles an hour. And there was like a campaign, I guess it was on Facebook or something, to say, look, this camera is clearly faulty. We all know the camera's there. We live here. We weren't speeding. And then all of a sudden, the Highways Agency have kind of taken the camera away, put another one in, and said, no, there was nothing wrong with it. It was all calibrated and working fine. Again, it seems pretty obvious that the camera was faulty. It would appear from the evidence that I've seen. And when I say evidence, it's anecdotal, it's people talking about it, but it seems pretty legit that this camera was not functioning correctly. And yet still, people have received the speeding fines, and overwhelming majority of them have paid the fine and incurred the points on their license. So it's pretty I don't know, it's kind of like, I totally understand why people would do it. We're all operating out of fear. When you think about it, the only reason we pay, or the majority of people pay speeding fines, is out of fear, because we fear the consequences of not doing so. And rightly so, because we're going to have this, this army, this mafia after us if we don't do it. I linked in my previous vlog to a documentary that I watched. I'm guessing some BTST members have probably watched it themselves by now. I'd be interested to hear what you think about it, by the way. I know the guy's got some wacky theories, and I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but I thought he was a really kind of interesting guy with some very good points. if you haven't seen that, I'll link the previous vlog I did in the video, where I mentioned about a guy called David Icke, who was talking about the poll tax and how people just rebelled and refused to pay the poll tax, and so it was essentially unenforceable. Wouldn't it be great if we could do the same thing with speeding tickets? What would it take for that to happen? Lastly, there's a chap called, I think his name's Richard Keedwell, who's just spent £30,000 on solicitors' fees to defend a speeding ticket, a £100 speeding ticket, because he was so sure that he was not speeding. I don't believe this was on the camera that I mentioned previously in Lincolnshire. I think it was another camera. But he was so convinced that he wasn't, so he spent all this money. It's a real shame he wasn't a member of Drive Protect, because it would have cost him a lot less to defend, a lot less. But it kind of shows you, if people are prepared to go to these lengths. His words were, don't quote me verbatim, but essentially he said the system is a big con. He definitely used the words big con, and I wholeheartedly agree, Richard. So yeah, Thames Valley Police are making some new smart motorway cameras live. I think they're on the M4 and M40. It might be next month or shortly. They're going to be going live anyway. And they're recruiting 15 new staff to process the fines. So each camera is anticipated to make £600,000 profit. I think it's either revenue or profit, but essentially they'll be virtually the same thing per year. And there's loads of them. So we'll look forward to that. Clearly a business, clearly a money-making exercise. If anyone thinks differently, then with the greatest of respect, you're crazy. But I know most people watching this video are going to agree with me, or at least I think they are. I think you are. Let me know in the comments, guys, and if you like the video, if you wouldn't mind giving it a little thumb up thing, that'd be great. I'll speak to you soon.